Deebo update. Talk a little bit about the center, Mack. Talk about Nick Bosa. Is Nick Bosa's contract going to be having situations like this? Oh, my. Right to it.
Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on three. 1, 2, 3. Dominate.
Welcome back to another episode of the 49ers Red Zone podcast. It's your host, Marco, my boy, Rohan. It's very depressing, Rohan, watching our intro, seeing Deebo Samuel score a touchdown, hit the
Yeah,
gritty, go crazy, and then have to talk about Deebo Samuel wanting a trade. Like, it's very sad.
it is. It is because obviously he's the cornerstone of our franchise. At least he is at the moment. And everyone, when you talk about the heart and soul of the team, people don't point to the other players. They point to the guy that puts it all on the field, and that's Deebo Samuel. So it definitely is a little emotional in a way, knowing that his potential or his future with the franchise could be in limbo.
Yeah, so I know we want to get straight to it. We want to talk Deebo, give a quick Deebo update, go into Mac, and then we'll go into Nick Bosa. So I know you wanted to talk to me about a report that came out yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Came out
Yes.
yesterday from Damon Bruce. Talk to me about that. Give us that what he actually said because I haven't been on the social media yesterday or today. I had class all day, and so I've been following most of the stuff, but like some of that stuff gets brushed right into like the under the rug with everyone else. So talk to me about what Damon Bruce said.
Right. So first, we saw the report from Tony Pauline, the report that Deebo Samuel got paid in the range of 17 to 19 million, which did back up what we were originally saying from what we heard on the podcast the other day. And then now we hear a little couple hours later yesterday about Damon Bruce of 95.7 the game. He actually insisted that the situation was worse, saying the 49ers have actually yet to make an offer to Deebo Samuel at all. Now, obviously, there's a lot of speculation, so we don't necessarily know which rumor is true or not. And with all these guys, I personally believe what they're saying. They're not necessarily saying lies. It's just what they're told is what they're saying. So the information that they're told might not be true necessarily. And so Damon Bruce, his quote is, even though there are stories to the contrary about an opening position the Niners put in front of Deebo Samuel, I have it from someone very close to the situation that the 49ers have yet to put an offer on the table. And this isn't a situation where they didn't like an opening offer, thought they were lowballed and insulted by that. The insult was basically the Niners saying, we'll give you an extension when we're good and ready, and you are a player until we say otherwise. And so what that essentially wraps up real quick is that honestly, the insult is there, but it's that the 49ers have yet to make an offer. And we've seen the Deebo video with him and AJ Brown, where he also said, I don't know how long ago that was, but reportedly it's him and AJ Brown, and he also said in that he's yet to get an offer, while AJ Brown said he was lowball.
Man, that's crazy. So they're pretty much telling Deebo, like, we don't care about your contract until we're ready. When we're ready is when we'll negotiate a contract with you. Wow. Like, so they're dead ass saying, like, nah, we don't care about your feelings right now. It matter of what. Dang, that's very interesting because we just had Tony Pauline come on PF Pro Football Network, and he said that the initial offer or the initial negotiation starting price was thrown out at 19 average per year, which right away gets disputed by Damon Bruce from 95.7 the game. And we should let people know. So people who are listening to the podcast, and a lot of you guys might not be Niner fans. So 95.7 the game is a local Bay Area a radio talk show, right? That's the
Right.
easiest way to explain it. So they're going to give you a little bit more sugar coated information regarding the 49ers because they're going to have right away, they're going to have 49ers people talking to them about what's going on. They're going to run the narrative through 95.7 the game so they could get ahead of the narrative, right? So Damian Bruce comes out and says no contract was offered a day, literally the same day as Tony Pauline said, well, there's actually an initial offer at 19 million. I personally think the Tony Pauline offer is legit. I think Tony Pauline got that from probably a Deebo source or somewhere along that line, because I believe Deebo Samuel was talking to AJ Brown in a video on Instagram, a live, and
Right.
that number is thrown out there, right? So
Right.
that number is not going to be thrown out there if it's not true. And I don't think both Deebo Samuel and AJ Brown are getting offered 19 million per year. The price around AJ Brown was actually 20 million per year, and that's
Yeah.
what that video states. So
Mhm.
I think Tony Pauline's reporting was very accurate, and someone from the 49ers organization tried to get ahead or tried to shut that narrative down and said, actually, we haven't offered anything yet, which is even more disrespectful to Deebo Samuel if that's the case.
And I mean, it is interesting, right? Because we've seen over the last couple of days how the 49ers have made every effort to try and get in front of the situation. The day before the trade request became public, although it had been known in the organization for a couple of weeks, I think 2 weeks to that point, the day it became public, the day before, Adam Schefter came out and he said that Deebo Samuel is unwilling to come to the table and the 49ers are actually at the negotiating table. Ian Rappaport kind of backs that up on the day that Deebo Samuel's request came public, and that the 49ers are willing to pay Deebo Samuel. It's just he isn't willing to come out. And so both of those stories corroborate with what the 49ers would prefer because it's showing that they're the team kind of at the table, and it gives you two things. First, it gives you bad publicity towards Deebo Samuel, which doesn't help him in his situation to try and get the most money possible. And it also gives the 49ers a way to save face in the case that Deebo Samuel, because, we've seen a lot of fans currently over the last 2 days, 3 days saying Deebo Samuel doesn't want to be a part of the team. We don't want him here. And that's how, I mean, it's okay to think that way. And as a fan, you have every right to your opinion, but it's also just a way of how the 49ers have gotten out in front of the media and gotten the fans in a way on their side in this saga. And obviously today, Ian Rappaport also came out on the Pat McAfee show. He confirmed in a way what Damon Bruce was saying, that the 49ers have yet to offer Deebo Samuel. Now, is that report necessarily true? That report could also be coming to the 49ers. Ian Rappaport's words have been very 49ers friendly in a way. So that could report, or that source could come from the 49ers itself, trying to get the situation back on their side in a way. But yeah, there are conflicting reports, and perhaps that's what the 49ers want. A conflicting report where you can't necessarily believe anything until action happens. And obviously, we don't know if action is actually going to happen or not, or if the situation gets resolved. Because it's the first time the 49ers have been in this situation where it's became public.
And that's the biggest thing, right? Because, like, the way the 49ers run and the way we haven't seen a player necessarily speak out publicly about their contract negotiation with the 49ers. We've had Fred Warner, we had Trent Williams, we've had George Kittle. So we've had some pretty big contracts in the recent couple years. And none of these players have actually came out on social media or spoke through their agent and said, hey, we're getting lowballed, because most of the time players probably are lowballed to get the contract negotiations started, right? Because the team's not going to come in and say, "Hey, I'll offer you 28 million." Because if you offer me 28 million, I'm going to say, "Well, guess what? Sorry, I can't do it. My asking price is actually 35, right?" So now they have to meet me at 31 or roughly. So usually a team's going to lowball, and usually a player is going to ask high. So I think the words that are coming from Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, those are very Niner-centric reports in terms of we haven't offered yet, so I don't know why people are saying we lowballed him. Put it this way, Rohan.
Yeah,
If a team was to if a team was to say, "Hey, guys, we done messed up. We lowballed Deebo Samuel, and now now he wants to be traded." You know what the whole fan base is going to say? Whole fan base is going to say you guys are cheap, which they've been saying for the past couple of years. People have been
right.
saying you are cheap because you have not brought in players. This isn't that, when technically they actually have brought in players. They have actually had a lot of
Yeah.
players signed and stuff. So they're trying to spew a narrative about a player and his contract negotiations, and I think it's unfair to Deebo Samuel because a lot of the fan base has turned on him, and this is where I come in, and I'm actually going to defend Deebo Samuel, even though I've been one of those fans who said from the beginning I've been saying Deebo was going to be traded. That was my stance. I've said it very loud on the podcast, and I said that's what I believe. But I'm going to come to his defense because a lot of the fans and the fan base is saying, "Oh, get rid of him, get as much as you can." No, Deebo, go get your bag, bro. Don't worry about what the fan base says. Don't worry about if the 49ers don't want to pay you. Go get your bag somewhere else. And if it's not with us, I don't care because I want you to get your bag. And that's all that matters is him getting his bag at the end of the day. And most of the fan base is like, well, I support the 49ers. Like, yeah, I so do I. But I want a player to get his money. Like these owners make freaking billions of dollars, but then we're gonna tell this player, oh, you shouldn't get 25 million. You should only get 19. Come on, man. That's ridiculous. And it bothers me because the way these fans talk, they talk like these owners don't make billions of dollars to pay these players 25 to 30 million dollars per year.
Yeah, and I mean it is fair, right? Because I'm also a player centric person. I do believe that the players should get what they deserve and what they believe they will deserve because in all reality, they're the ones putting on the show. They're the ones being the entertainment in a way. And that's why I think it's important where we don't necessarily just see players as players, but also people, right? Like, sure, they're putting on a product, but they also have families. They also have to support themselves. And I think it is important that we all understand that as well. So, yeah, there is two sides to this. And obviously, Debo Samuel is going to look to get the best contract possible. He did file the trade request per rumors. And so when we look at it, what is the next resolution in a way? That's the uncertain part. I think a lot of the certainty will clear up by the draft, which is in 1 week from yesterday, 6 days. By the draft, day one, if Deebo Samuel isn't moved, I do believe he remains a 49er. That's my personal belief. But obviously, if he is moved, then we could see a good amount of action on that on day one because then we'd likely have a draft pick. But at the moment, in my opinion, it does feel that he isn't being moved, especially with how the story kind of flattened out in a bit with in regards to the amount of trade talks. Because the 49ers, at least to what I've heard, is they haven't been accepting trade talks in a way. Like they've been accepting them, but they've been declining them. But obviously now with the situation unfolding as it is, maybe that changes over the next week.
The thing too though is the 49ers shouldn't rush any trade talks, right? Like they shouldn't
Right.
say, "Hey, we want to move him now." They have 6 days until the draft, and they have the day of the draft up until around 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time um, to get a deal done, right? So if you wait as far as you can tell the team, "Hey, if you offer me your first round pick and a second round pick, is yours." Like you know what I mean? So you could get more that way. But I do
Right.
think
You're
there are
right.
teams that are willing to actually get a Deebo Samuel a trade with him and pay him as much as he wants because at the end of the day, Deebo Samuel's last year he showed he was a top 5 player in the NFL in terms of non quarterbacks and I think with Deebo Samuel he has all the right to be upset, especially if the team isn't wanting to sit down and negotiate a contract because Deebo Samuel, him and AJ Brown are very good friends. I'm sure he's good friends with DK Metcalf as well because AJ Brown and DK are like best friends. So I'm
Mhm.
sure they're all good friends and they're all trying to get their contract situated right now. And Debo probably wants to get his done first or last, whatever the case may be. And it's frustrating that the team doesn't want to sit down and even negotiate because we've heard Debo talking to AJ Brown on an Instagram live and they're
Right.
talking about their contract negotiation. So it's very disturbing when another player of your caliber is having contract negotiation. Your team's pretty much saying "f off." I'll talk to you when I talk to you, right? So that's I understand where Debo's coming from. I do think that he's not going to get as much draft capital as the fan base thinks. I know we talked about it the other day. We talked about a first round and a second round pick would probably be fair compensation, right? A
Mhm.
lot of fans think Debo's going to go for two first round picks and a second. Like they're being very um, I don't want to say it because I love the 49er fan base, but it's very delusional to think a player of Samuel's caliber was going to go for two firsts and a second when Tyreek Hill just went for way less than that, and Devontae Adams went for less than that. So, like, we have to take into consideration of what the trade packages that those two players just went for, and we have to understand that a team isn't going to overpay, and it's going to be based around those two trades that just recently happened.
Yeah, and I mean, I think when we look at Debo Samuel's situation, right? You're right, it could be insulting in a way, but the 49ers, right, they've done this before. I do think that this is somewhat salvageable. despite some reports maintaining that it's unsalvageable, I do believe that with the way the 49ers have done things, it is salvageable. But to me, one interesting thing when we talk about the draft and a potential Deebo trade, I brought this up a couple of days ago on Twitter, and I think honestly, it's a topic that's not talked about enough in a way in with receivers in this situation or any player in this situation. And me personally, I don't think that I think Deebo Samuel is going to end up choosing in a way where he wants to go. I personally said that Deebo Samuel is a no trade clause, and do I mean that contractually? No. What I mean is, if Deebo Samuel doesn't want to go to a team, let's say the Lions, he won't choose to sign an extension with them, and that de-incentivizes teams from trading for that player. Instead, he can somewhat pick his destination, and I think it'll be a situation. If a trade occurs, I think it'll be a situation similar to the Tyreek Hill deal or the Devontae Adams deal, where the Kansas City Chiefs took in offers, told Tyreek Hill, one of the teams that you want, took in offers. Once they accepted the offer, they let Tyreek Hill pick the destination between the teams. I'm sure the 49ers will have a ton of suitors. Maybe they do something similar like that.
I mean, you could do something similar to that, right? And then you want to do right by your players because it's only going to show other players in free agency over the next couple of years that hey, they're willing to take care of their players somehow, some way. And when they
Right.
don't want to, when the player doesn't want to be there, they're still taking care of them, letting them choose where they want to play. The thing is, though, if the Detroit Lions are calling, right, and they're saying, hey, we'll give you pick 32, 34, and let's say another pick, right? Just
Mhm.
hypothetical. And they're the only team offering, would Deebo be willing to go to a team like that if they're willing to pay him $70 million
That's an
guaranteed?
interesting question.
That's
Yeah.
that's the big question that I've been floating around to myself, right? Because end of the day, if Deebo doesn't want to play for the Detroit Lions or whoever the case may be, if a team is offering, let's say Detroit's offering 75 million guaranteed versus the Ravens are calling, they're like, hey Debo, we're willing to give you like 60, 65. Are you willing to take it? Is he willing to take less money to go to the destination he wants to be at or take the bag and actually, because if it's not about money, then I think the 49ers should get the most compensation for Debo
Yeah.
Samuel. If it's really not about the money, like some reports have came out and said, then I think the Niners should get the New York Jets to pay a little bit more than their 2 second-round picks and a mid-round pick because I think that's what they're willing to give, right? That's what they offered for Tyreek Hill. Why would they offer more for Deebo Samuel? It just doesn't make sense in terms of roster building. Why are you going to give up 4, 10, and then all your and then or 10 and then use all your second-round picks when you could get a dynamic player at 10 to help build your roster around Deebo Samuel and Wilson. So that's where I'm confused on if it's not about money, then they could get the most for him. If it's about money and it's about the offer the 49ers put together, then that's where teams with enough cap space, like the Jets, like the Lions, that's when they come into play. And I think you get a little bit less draft capital for them.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I'll bring up is obviously if Deebo Samuel's traded, there's another hole in a way that's brought up on the roster, and that's wide receiver. But right now, currently, the 49ers have some news that a lot of people aren't thinking about, and that's the Alex Mack retirement. Alex Mack has not come out and said he's going to play in 2022. We haven't seen any indication of Alex Mack training for the 2022 season. And I know we've heard John Lynch and all say that Alex Mack is optimistic to return in 2022. The same thing happened when they had Joe Staley. Joe Staley chose retirement. And the 49ers are also visiting with a ton of interior offensive linemen in this draft, especially those slotted to go in those middle rounds. And so with the Alex Mack retirement, the 49ers might have a need at center. Do you think that potentially with the Deebo Samuel trade, or even without it, that they address center in the draft? Or what do you think is the solution there?
They have to address center in the draft, even if Alex Mack comes back. And Alex Mack is training. He's just doing a different kind of training, Rohan. He's on a honeymoon. He's training to make kids, my man. That's where Alex Mack is at right now. You know what I mean? So he's training to do stuff, but just not football related stuff. So I think the 49ers have to think about Alex Mack. If he does retire, they have to understand that that's the biggest hole on the team. JC Treader could fit that spot, but I don't think JC Treader is a guy you bring in for 2 to 3 years and let him take the reins. I think you bring in JC Treader for a year, and then you have to have a young rookie center. I think it would be best for a young center to develop with Trey Lance, right? A guy who could work everything and build that camaraderie with his quarterback. So instead of Trey Lance calling out everything protection wise, that center could like, no, check, check, check. I'm changing it because this is what I see, and they can have that relationship. That's what I would love. That's what I've seen from quarterbacks that love their center. That's the kind of like relationship they have. So I would love to see that for Trey Lance. So I really do hope they draft a center this draft class. So a guy I like, Cam Jurgens, Dylan Parham. Those are a few guys that I like. So it would be very interesting to see if the 49ers do address center early in the draft like they should.
Yeah, and I think it will be interesting because one thing I've seen in some mock drafts, especially if Deebo Samuel gets traded for a mid first round pick, is Tyler Linderbaum coming to the 49ers. And I think that'd be also an interesting fit potentially. Do I think that they should go Tyler Linderbaum over some other players? Not necessarily if an edge drops in that first round, but I think that, it's interesting because you want to see someone with Trey Lance and obviously, the 49ers will have to rely a lot on their centers, right? They've chosen the veteran presence in the past. They first signed Weston Richburg. He got injured. Then they played Ben Garland for a bit. Daniel Brunskill played a bit of center, but then they went out and they got Alex Mack after that. So they do prefer the veteran options in a way, and it's important because you want that relationships between your center and your quarterback. But this is an unprecedented era for the 49ers in that they have their franchise quarterback who's at a young age currently. And I think that at this point, the 49ers could look to pair a rookie because of the lack of available options for a good number of years because JC Treader is not necessarily a 3 to 5 year option. He's more likely an intermediate solution in the 1 to 2 year range because he also, like the one issue with JC Treader is his injury history. He has his knees have been a problem for a bit, and he's been good when he's played, but he's had injury issues. So you wonder, can he play a full season? Because he's only been able to play 8 to 10 games, right? And so instead, when you look at centers in this draft, you might think, okay, this might be the time to change that mo because when we first looked, right, while the 49ers like veteran centers, Weston Richburg was fairly young when he got his 5 year deal. The 49ers wanted some guy to pair with their franchise quarterback at the time in Jimmy Garoppolo. And with that lack of options in this free agency period and also in next free agency period, I do think that it would be smart to grab a center for the immediate or for the future, not only for the immediate present, but also for the later, like the 5 to 10 year guy that you can have with Trey Lance. And so if Alex Mack retires, I would not be opposed to having JC Treader play center for 2022. But I do think that that should only be a bridge for whoever plays whoever plays in 2023 at the center position.
So you said a name, Tyler Linderbaum. Can I tell you a secret about him?
Go
That I
for it.
have about him? I don't want anyone else to know but you. So I hope we're not live right now. I don't think he's that good. I really don't.
Okay.
I it is a hot take. I know people were like, "Oh, he's a surefire first round pick. He deserves to be that guy, and he's going to be a great center in the league." I actually don't think he's the best center in the draft class. I don't even think he's probably the third best, the second best center in the draft class. I think he's a player I would stay away from. When I watch his tape, I don't really like what he shows. I don't like his size. He is undersized, and for Kyle's system, yes, you need to be undersized, but at the same time, you have to be able to anchor down when you have guys bull rushing you, an Aaron Donald bull rushing you. He's going to get whooped on. When you have bigger defensive tackles, that's where he lacks, and he lacks the ability to anchor down. And he also has very short arms. Where the zone blocking team, Kyle likes a center to be able to reach block and be able to control things and get to the next level, right? So for me, I would stay away from Tyler in the bottom. That's just me though. I understand that a lot of people they scout differently and they look for different things, but in my opinion, a secret that only you and I are going to have, no one else. I really don't. I would stay away from Tyler Linderbaum. But Alex Mack retiring is a very big issue, a very big situation that is going down. But the 49ers have to pay another dude. He's probably one of the best players. He probably is the best player on their team. That player is Nick Bosa. When is that going to start playing out? I mean, understand he still has 2 years under his rookie contract because he has his fourth year and then his fifth year option, right? So how does that work? What are we looking at here because he's going to be the highest paid defensive player when it's all said and done.
Yeah, so let me speak from this contractually, right? Because if the 49ers right now, they have a problem with Deebo Samuel, what it likely goes down to is the money. Guaranteed money, average annual value, and the total or practical guarantees in a way. The 49ers are not a team notorious for paying guaranteed money. Even last year, when they had to scrounge for every penny to pay Trent Williams because he was about to sign with the Chiefs, they only paid him $40.1 million in guaranteed money over that $138 million contract. And so let's keep that in mind, right? Now, at the edge position, let's look to Nick Bosa's brother, Joey Bosa, at a time when the guaranteed money ranking for guaranteed money at signing before Joey Bosa got his contract, it was at 60 million. Joey Bosa broke the bank and absolutely reset the record. He got 78 million guaranteed at signing, 18 million more than the last player, who I believe was Aaron Donald, although I could be mistaken. Then, not only that, TJ Watt then came up and he broke the bank as well. He got 80 million in guaranteed at signing, and so it's going to be tough to pay Nick Bosa. And when I personally look at it, how are the 49ers going to go from 48 million in total guarantees to 80 million in total guarantees just like that? And that's also why I'm a little bit of a proponent of, you can pay Deebo Samuel. That bridges the gap in a way between the guaranteed money, and then it obviously has to escalate between him and Nick Bosa. But at least there's like a slight bridge and a bridge and a bridge, because otherwise there's not that much optimism. Because not only is Nick Bosa likely to warrant around 30 million average per year, he's also going to warrant more than the 80 million guaranteed, and he's also probably going to warrant more than the the 102 million in total guarantees that his own brother got. So it's a huge gap between what the 49ers have usually done and what he's likely to command. And that's why I'm saying what I've been saying for the past couple of days is the 49ers need to change the way that they negotiate these big contracts. The way that they negotiate currently is very suitable for the lower tier and mid-tier contracts, where the bridge between their starting caliber price and what they're asking for is not as heavy as the price between guys like their original offer, which was 17-ish million, and Deebo Samuel, who was looking for 25 million. That is too big of a gap, and you can't have that with your homegrown stars, because it sheds a bad light on your culture, which has been the main reason that players have signed with you in the first place. So to me, I believe that they need to start changing the way that they negotiate. And I'm looking at Parag Marante, and I'm a Parag fan.
Fire
I
Parag.
know there are a lot of good amount of people that don't like Parag, and I like Parag for the things that he does with those other contracts, right? I mean, we saw Travarius Ward got signed. We saw a ton of players got signed this offseason to very team-friendly deals. I know I shouldn't say that, but it is fairly team-friendly deals. And the way that he structures them is also team-friendly, and the way that he's negotiated past contracts. But I think there has to be a bridge between those and the newer contracts, because newer scale contracts, people are looking to reset the market and they're going to be insulted. And I think the 49ers really got a big slap in the face this offseason, because Deebo Samuel is the first player that ever took it public. And so if they're going to continue to do this, well, guess what? The Joey Bosa and Nick Bosa family, they don't budge. They're not going to play around. So you need to make sure that you don't insult them with any offer and come into negotiations with an open mind.
Well, the Niners have already had a little issue with Nick Bosa in terms of the contract language on his rookie deal, right? Like that was
Right.
a big thing, that he didn't want to sign that rookie deal until that contract language was fixed. Why? Because of Parag, right? So Joey Bosa, he got paid. He's going to be letting Nick know, hey, if you know how competitive they are, if you don't make more money than me, I win. And that's something that they do, right? Like we've heard Nick Bosa say him and his brother compete about who gets more sacks each year, who had a better season. And like that's something they do. They compete with each other to push each other to that max, so they can make each other the best players they possibly can be. So I guarantee you, if Nick gets a little bit under, or even anything under Joey, it's a wrap. Like and there's no way Nick gets anything under, because every defensive end resets the market. And right now it's around, he should be looking at 100 million, 100 something million in terms of like 125. I have to double check, but I know he's not going to get 100 million guaranteed. A lot of people say that the money guaranteed is going to be 100 million, but resetting the market, that's not resetting the market. That's outrageously resetting the market. Top paid
Oh,
defensive
in
end.
terms of guaranteed signing, yeah.
Yeah,
Guaranteed signing is probably going to be around 85 million, I'd say, because
and
Watt was
that's where it
80.
should
Yeah,
be, right?
right.
because if you look at like everyone who's made the money, like you have from the Brown. Why can't I think of it? Miles Garrett, right? We have
Garrett,
Miles
Bosa,
Garrett,
and then Khalil Mack. Those were the top three alongside Donald.
and
Oh,
that's the
and
thing with.
TJ Watt. Yeah.
But if we're gonna do guaranteed money, we you can't. Aaron Donald's in his own class because he's a defensive tackle, so like it's a little bit
Right.
different. But Miles Garrett did get his practical guaranteed money is 100 million, right? So now if
Right.
we're to look at the guaranteed at signing, that's much
It's only
different. It's
45 or 43.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's at 43. So it's a much different contract language, or like I'm saying. So if we look at Nick Bosa, the starting number for Nick Bosa is around 70 million, in my opinion, guaranteed, right? Because if you look at where all these players are guaranteed, we have defensive tackles who are making a lot of money. Guaranteed at signing, Aaron Donald's at 50. We have DeForest Buckner was at 40 around there. And if we look at the biggest thing is you have practical guaranteed and you have guaranteed money. The practical guaranteed includes the guaranteed money in case of an injury, right? That's if they get injured,
Right.
then they're guaranteed this extra money because of that injury.
Right.
So with Miles Garrett at 100 million, that's where it gets tricky. Will the 49ers hit 100 million guaranteed in practical money? I don't know. Like,
Especially
I
with
mean,
Bosa's prior injury, right? He had two ACL tears already. And the one thing when you talk about contracts, right? The 49ers are going to do something unprecedented with Nick Bosa. They haven't done before if they're going to sign him to an extension, and that is they're going to be forced to guarantee that full third year. The 49ers do not guarantee the third year of contracts. They'll guarantee maybe a million, at max 3 to 5 million, but they will not guarantee the full 20 whatever million of that third year. And that's what's going to have that's what it's going to have to take. Joey Bosa got his signing bonus and all three of his first years guaranteed on his contract, and that's how it got up to 78 million. And if you're telling me Nick Bosa is going to be paid more than 78 million in just total in guaranteed at signing, then it's going to cover that. And so that's why I'm saying, especially with the 49ers not also giving major signing bonuses, it's probably going to be a fairly hefty price in terms of salary. And I'm very interested to see how they structure this because they're already going to be breaking precedent like that. I'm going to be wondering, are they going to give a high signing bonus to a player with injury concerns in the past where they're going to be liable in that fourth and fifth year with that signing money, especially with the 3-year opt-out clause that they normally give? Or are they going to give a low signing bonus and take the hit over the next 3 years with an absurdly high cap hit? Because if you're not giving a high signing bonus, then that extra money that's going to be guaranteed goes into the salaries. And so that's what I'm wondering what they'll do. And I'm not sure, but I do hope, though, that they don't insult. You said the starting point has to be 70 million. I'm not confident the 49ers are going to start at 70 million when they
I'm saying
started very
70.
low.
I'm saying 70 and guaranteed at signing, right? Because guaranteed at
Mhm.
signing,
Right, 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 right.
if we look at guaranteed at signing, Aaron Donald's at 50, and then the defensive ends at guaranteed at signing is around 45. So I'm kind of going a lot higher at guaranteed at signing because remember it's Nick Bosa. You're gonna have to reset the market. Like that's what he's trying to do. So
Yeah,
guaranteed at 70 might be high guaranteed at signing. So we might be looking at 60, right? But in terms of fully guaranteed money over injury and everything, they're going to be have to be pushing around 105, 110 to reset the market because Miles Garrett got that $100 million practically guaranteed. So the contract negotiation with Nick Bosa is going to get tricky because, like you said, Parag doesn't like that third year fully guaranteed, and that's something that I wonder if that's playing a factor in the Deebo Samuel situation because that guaranteed money is where players want. Players do not want to be making non-guaranteed money because if you get injured, then your following year, if the team cuts you and you have no guaranteed money, you're screwed. So, for example, a big player that I like to keep bringing up because it was a great situation, right? Even though the quarterback would have gone signed, if we look at Dak Prescott, right? He was on a franchise tag. He snaps his ankle. If that, let's say, if he was a receiver or if he was a running back, that probably ends his career in terms of getting a big payday. He's going to have to get a prove it deal and then work from there, right? So that's a situation where it gets very tricky. And I hope the 49ers realize you can't play games with your big time players. And it bothers me that they did this with George Kittle. They did it with Fred Warner. Trent Williams was almost a Kansas City Chief. Why? because Parag Marate was offering some cheap contract until Kyle Shanahan came in and said, "Hey, that's my guy. You have to bring him back. Like I'm going to do what we have to do to bring him back." Does Kyle Shanahan do that for Nick Bosa and Deebo Samuel? I think Deebo Samuel is completely out the door. I think that's a lost cause, and it should be something that's a fireable offense on Parag Marate's hands. So I think Parag Marate should be fired for that. And the 49ers fan base should be calling for Parag Marate to be fired because he is the contract guru. And that is something that the 49er fans need to realize. Parag Marate is not good for roster building. And they need to understand that this is the reason most likely Deebo Samuel left.
Yeah, and Niner Sickness Podcast tuning in. Thank you for tuning in, man. And yes, this overlay is from Jesse. You can already tell it's amazing. Thank you for tuning in, brother. But when we talk about Nick Bosa's thing, one other thing that I want to bring up, right? Joey Bosa and Nick Bosa. What happened when Joey Bosa was getting his contract? Well, first of all, Joey Bosa on his rookie deal, the reason that they were a stickler is because of the upfront money. Joey Bosa didn't like that the Chargers wanted to push his signing bonus too far into the future. He wanted that money earlier. And so if you're going to talk about guaranteed at signing, the money that Nick Bosa is going to get at signing, they're going to be looking at least at that number. That is the most important number in this entire negotiation. And that family, exactly, they're not going to play around. They want that money up front, and there's going to be a dispute if not. Joey Bosa also got that 6-year, $135 million deal. And one thing I want to point out, Myles Garrett and Joey Bosa were negotiating at the same time. Myles Garrett got his deal about 2 weeks earlier. And like Marco said, Myles Garrett only got $43.5 million guaranteed at signing. Joey Bosa got $35 million more than that just 2 weeks after for being roughly the same caliber of player, if not a worse player.
I've been looking at the wrong numbers. So let me actually give you the proper numbers for edge players. So practical guarantee money, and this is where I messed. I was looking at defensive ends, but I should be looking at edge because the way the contract, the way like the spot rack and like every over the cap and everything works, they put defensive tackles, and then they put like for example, Joey Bosa is considered an edge player. He's an outside linebacker,
but
so he's not like
yeah,
but he's technically a defensive end. So Joey Bosa is the highest paid defensive edge player, right? So his practical guaranteed is 102 million, and his guaranteed at signing is a 78 million. So the 70 million that I threw out there earlier, the 70 million I threw out there earlier, it's way low. It should be around like 85.
Yeah.
It should be around 75.
Okay. Now we're on the same page. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was looking at my bad. I was looking at defensive ends when I should be looking at edge. I forgot that Spot Rack does this because I just remember that TJ Watt just cashed in and he got 80 million.
He got 80. Yeah, he got 80. So the like, 85 number that I was talking about earlier, that's likely what Nick Bosa is going to want in a way. But when we look at it, right, Joey Bosa got his deal just 2 weeks after Myles Garrett, and he got 35 more in guaranteed up front. And while the two players had very similar money in terms of guaranteed for injury and the total amount of guarantees, well, guess what? One wants their money up front. One doesn't necessarily care as much. And that was the one that wanted the money up front was Joey Bosa, which is why it's going to be important that the 49ers pay him early. The 49ers did well with the rookie contract business. They signed Nick Bosa in July, at the end of July, rather than very close to training camp, because they realized how Joey Bosa had that holdout at the beginning and of his rookie, like before signing his rookie deal. So I hope they do the same, a similar process here in terms of language. But yeah, it's going to be a tough negotiation for sure.
And that's the thing that like gets very tricky with the 49ers because if you were unwilling to give Deebo Samuel, this is speculation. This is not you and I saying they're unwilling to give Deebo a certain guaranteed money because we know that the most that they've given like guaranteed wise isn't that high. It's around 50, right? That's the most that they've given to a player. 50 million guaranteed.
48. Yeah, 48.7 for Garoppolo.
So that's the highest they've ever gone. So we're looking at a jump of around 35 to 40 million in terms of guaranteed money. So I wonder how that's going to play out because Nick Bosa is a freak. He's a freak athlete. When he's on the field, he changes that defense around, right? So you have to make sure, not necessarily. I think this is where Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, when John Lynch was saying the 49ers have a budget for each of them. I think the budget was Deebo Samuel cheap, Nick Bosa expensive. That's how you fit both of them in, right? And I
Mm,
think it backfired because it should have been negotiate a contract however these players want to negotiate their contract, and then go from there. Because you negotiated a contract with a guy like Deebo Samuel, and reports say no contract was negotiated. Reports say he was offered initially $19 million. We don't know what the true report is. I can like we said earlier, we can tell you that be aware of who's reporting things. Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, 95.7 The Game are probably Niner centric versus a guy like Tony Pauline is probably somewhere in the lines of Deebo Samuel words. So there probably was a contract not offered, but negotiating. Like, hey, what's your guys' starting price?
yeah.
Well, we're
I
at
mean, it's
19.
all semantics, right?
Yep.
Offered and negotiated, like, sure. It's not like they wrote it on a piece of paper and had it signed by John Lynch. We are formally representing you this trade offer. I mean, this contract offer. No, obviously it's negotiation. So maybe nothing was formal or nothing was finalized in a way, but there were certainly probably negotiations.
Yeah, and then that's something that the 49ers, if they didn't offer a contract offer or if they didn't do any of that, that's their fault, and that's where they need to be criticized. And a lot of the fans, a lot of people don't like to criticize the 49ers. It's usually all glitz and glamour, sugar-coated information, sugar-coated this, that. If they really did not offer a contract when his agent and him were trying to actually negotiate contracts, they need to be criticized for not offering their best player on offense a contract.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree because I mean, like this is the face of your franchise in a way, and I understand wanting to get value, right? And if not, I at least believe that there needs to be some form of transparency because obviously there's a starting point and a finish point negotiations. And me personally, I mean, if you started 3 million higher at 20 million, that gap is 3 million lower, and I think that's at least doable. But if you start at somewhere around 17 or 19 million, like somewhere in the lower range, below what your friend got, and I'm sure, like you said, right? There's probably friendly competition, but there's also a good relationship between Samuel and AJ Brown. So when you look at it,
Mhm.
like if Samuel's realizing, wow, they're offering me that much lower than my own friend, and my own friend is getting lowballed, that's not nice. I mean, that's just not a way to negotiate in that way. And
It's a
I'm sure,
slap in the
like,
face. That's
yeah,
what
I
it
mean, that's
is.
what you said, it, a slap in the face. And so, like, I understand trying to get a starting point, and I don't know exactly how the 49ers come to their starting points with Parag Malate, but I do hope that they get the situation fixed because I think that the whole point of having Trey Lance on a rookie deal is to maximize the talent around him with bigger contracts. And if you can scheme it in a way that you have Deebo Samuel for the time that Trey Lance is still on his rookie deal, maybe you don't need him for longer than that. Maybe you scheme the contract so it's a 3 year out so that that's the possibility. But if not, and you mess this up while also tarnishing your own culture's reputation, I think that that's a lose lose situation, which the 49ers have placed themselves in by starting this way.
But, like, is it necessarily a lose-lose situation? Because, like, the way the 49ers have put it out, right? Like, the way Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, and I guarantee you, if he is traded, the Niners are gonna blame Deebo Samuel. They're gonna be like, "Oh, well, he didn't wanna live here in California. He wanted to go close to home." Like, that's the stuff that's already being said. Like, they're kinda making it Deebo Samuel's fault, you know what I mean? Like, who doesn't wanna live close to home? And oh,
Parag's
damn.
nickname is GameStop.
Damn. Hey, that's cold. That you know what it is? Like, like when I don't know if you're old enough though, Rohan. So like when you used to have games, right,
Yeah, yeah.
for game and you go to cash them in at GameStop when you're done, damn, I'm taking like 25 games. I'm about to get like $60, $80 to buy myself a game or two. And then they're like, I could give you 2.99. I'm like, bro, like that's 60 games you're talking about. Like, those are good games. Like that's literally Parag. He's like, "Hey, Debo, I know you're great, bro, but 5.99. Hey, look, Debo, a discount, bro, 5.99 and unlimited food on us." Like that's kind of like what he's kind of doing, and it's like, man, it's a knee slapper. Debo's gone. I really think he's gone, and it's one of those ones. Jimmy said that Jimmy Moore said that on his Instagram live off of,
That's
and
what
it's
the
true.
players say.
When you have the players saying this, it's like, come on, like why are players calling calling out dudes who they shouldn't be calling out, right? Like, and that's where it becomes a big issue, in my opinion. When you have players in the locker room already calling Parag Marate GameStop, you have them criticizing Parag Marate. Why is he still around? I understand that he's been around for a very long time. Change his title and get him away from contract negotiations. This is what a general manager normally does. They have their guy who is a good cap guy, but you should not have a guy who negotiates your contracts for you and tells you, hey, you cannot offer this dude more than this. Like that, there's a fine line in contract negotiations that Parag sets. And he literally goes, okay, the line's here, the player's up here, right? If you're watching, you can see my hands. The players up here, our lines down here. We need to get the player under the line. Like that's literally how he tries to do it. And he goes, ha ha ha, I won the contract. Like when he does that, and he gets it because he gets lower end players. He hasn't signed superstars to those kind of deals. And when we look at the guys that he signed, those contracts are very team friendly. They really are.
Yeah, and I mean, you're right. It is team friendly, and that's part of the reason because Parag has done so much. That's part of the reason why I believe that he does still have value in a way, while he has botched the situation like this. And the one thing, I mean, people are saying let Adam Peters do the contracts. I don't think that's necessarily Adam Peters' specialty.
Nah,
He's more of a general manager, and then John
he's
Lynch
a
is more of a
scout.
team
He's a
president.
scout.
Yeah, both of them, like John Lynch isn't also like the funny thing is I find it interesting that guy like the owner Jed York is willing to have guys like House like anytime something goes wrong, there's always someone you have to blame. And Parag is like the guy in the shadows. Normally people don't blame Parag, right? When situations go like this, what happens? Fire John Lynch, fire Kyle Shanahan. And so I find it interesting that they let like that situation arise like that because John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are not necessarily on the wrong side of this. Kyle Shanahan and Deebo Samuel have a good relationship. That's the way, like John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are the way you salvage the situation, not actually make it worse. And that's why I find it interesting when there's that type of divide, and it's not necessarily their fault. It's just because they're the poster boys and Prague is working in the shadows that they are the ones getting blamed for this type of thing.
And I think there's good blame to be put on both of them, right? Like this is where you use your power, right? If you really have that power as John Lynch really has, if you have that power that Kyle Shanahan has, that's where you step into it and you're like, hey, Parag, you're fucking up, man. And excuse my language for anyone watching, but you're messing up and you're slipping up and you are completely letting our best player walk out the door and you're saying, huh, don't let the door hit you. Like that's literally what he's kind of saying. Exactly. We almost lost Trent Williams to Kansas City because Parag was dragging his feet with negotiations. If it wasn't for Kyle Shanahan, who publicly said, "Hey, this is my guy. We're paying him this. I don't care what you say." That's what eventually turned things around. Can Kyle Shanahan do that for Deebo Samuel? Because depending on how he is, right? Deebo Samuel's a human, and when a human is pissed off so bad, there's no return. Especially when there's people reporting that it's not salvageable. There's no return in terms of bringing Deebo back. In my opinion, Jeff Darlington said it on the Rich Eisen show. This is not salvageable, and that he's talking to Deebo. He's the one who reported that Deebo requested a trade from Deebo Samuel himself. This is where it gets really ugly. And it's sad to say the 49ers are going to end up trading him this weekend.
We'll see about that. But I
Not
think
this
this is a
weekend,
good
but
place.
headed into the draft. I shouldn't say this weekend, but this weekend for me includes this week plus the draft, like the weekend to the draft. I misworded that. My bad.
But anyway, guys, we just talked a good amount about Deebo, Alex Mack's potential retirement, and also the Nick Bosa implications. All topics that are very
Hashtag pay
prevalent.
Bosa.
Yeah, I mean, pay all of them, really. Like, good contracts, but pay all of them, or at least be in the running. But there's going to be a lot of news that are just going to come around the next couple of days. When that comes on, 49ers Red Zone, we'll be back with another episode. But all of y'all in the chat, thank you guys for tuning in. We really appreciate the support, and we'll be back soon with another episode.